Upstate Medical University in Syracuse, New York invites you to be the informed patient with the podcast that features experts from Central New York's only academic medical center. I'm your host, Amber Smith. Upstate Medical University unveiled bronze statues of two of its earliest and most influential graduates in October 2025 outside of the Weiss Cotton Hall entrance to the medical school, now nicknamed the Courtyard of the Founding Mothers. Here with me to talk about the statues of Dr. Elizabeth Blackwell and Dr. Sarah Loguen Fraser is the woman who sculpted them, Carolyn Palmer. Welcome to The Informed Patient, Ms. Palmer.
Thank you, Amber. I'm happy to be here.
You've sculpted many historical figures, Thomas Jefferson, Orville and Wilbur Wright, Frank Sinatra, Lucille Ball, and you're working on Mother Teresa. What a cool job.
Yeah, she's actually finished. I'm working on new pieces now, but there's a large 16-foot Mother Nature going into the park near us here at the end of a covered bridge.
Very neat.
Yeah.
When did you know that you were going to be an artist, and how did you get started in sculpture?
As a little girl, I always had a passion to draw people's faces. And whenever I was near a sandbox or the beach, I wanted to bring out a person in the sand. So I was not only drawn to the two-dimensional drawings, I was actually very passionate about 3D very early on.
Interesting. Now, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Orange County, New York, at the bottom of a little mountain called Sugarloaf Mountain. My dad raised 8 kids out on a farm, and so I had a lot of opportunity to be with a lot of land, animals, and I think that lent itself to becoming a little more sensitive to the environment.
Now, did you go to school to study art or to learn art, or are you self-taught?
I went to, of course, the grammar schools in Orange County, New York in high school, and then I went away to college, and I wanted to follow in my uncle's footsteps, who was a doctor, and actually I had a lot of my family members in the medical field. And yet I always had the passion for art, and I switched over while I was at Nazareth College in Rochester. And I ended up graduating with a cum laude degree in art. Actually, it was a Bachelor of Science, but with a minor in art education to teach. So I had to take a few courses here and there, and only took 1 year of sculpture where the professors said, you have to follow this, you have to continue and do this. And I really didn't until later in life.
Were your parents supportive of a career in art?
Well, actually, they had 8 children, and my mother, with so many kids around her, for Christmas, my birthday, there was always gifts of art for me to draw or things like that. But they didn't really say, follow your art. But my father and my grandparents, oh, they were very involved in the arts. In fact, one of my relatives, great grand uncle John Woodward, was the first president of what is now the Brooklyn Museum. So my mother's line was filled with a lot of art. I don't know what you would call them, but they enjoyed the arts and they were collectors, and he was very big into the arts. So I don't know if that's where it came from, because no one in my family has the art gene at all.
Are you living in Orange County now?
No, I'm in Saddle River, New Jersey. My studio is right here in Saddle River, New Jersey. But I am working out of a foundry in Orange County, one of the top foundries. It's such a little hidden gem. It's called UAP. It used to be Polish Talix, and a lot of the great sculptures come out of there. And I'm just so privileged right now to be in there working on this gigantic piece, casting it. I do my work here in my studio, and then I cast my work there at the Bronze Foundry. That's in Rock Tavern, New York.
Now, do you have to be good at drawing to be a good sculptor?
I don't feel you have to be really good at drawing, but drawing trains your eye to see things clearly. But I don't think you have to be like spectacular at it. I started out drawing and doing paintings, and actually I find sculpture so much easier because I just feel like I can feel the presence of the form in space.
What was your first full body sculpture that you did?
Actually, that was Thomas Jefferson right in your neck of the woods. I did it for Tom Greenwood for the Jefferson Center that was on Jefferson Avenue there in Syracuse for many years. He had it there for 15 years, I think, and he sold it. He sold his building. It was a building that had a lot of offices in it and things like that. But in the lobby, it was beautiful. He set it up with the Declaration of Independence, and he had my statue there. And so that was quite exciting. We had the mayor do the unveiling, televised, and that was my first sculpture. And I really didn't think I was going to continue. I said, wow, I was able to fulfill this dream I always had to do a sculpture. But then one thing led to another, and here I am.
Now, I know you've done 4 marble busts of popes for St. Patrick's Cathedral. Are full body statues harder to do than busts because they're bigger?
Well, actually, let me just correct one part because it is very confusing. There's 4 bronze busts at St. Patrick's Cathedral, and the first one was of a marble, cast marble, which Pope Francis actually blessed, and that was in the papal residence where he stayed when he came on his visit. And that is what led to the 4 bronze popes. And to answer your question about is it harder, what I enjoy working on mostly is bringing the spirit out in the faces and the expression of people. And then when I have to introduce the body, yes, you have to bring in a lot more of the gestures, and you have to have the body actually speak with the physical or the spiritual presence that you're bringing out in the face. So yes, it's a lot more time consuming.
This is Upstate's The Informed Patient podcast. I'm your host, Amber Smith. I'm talking with Carolyn Palmer, the sculptor of the 2 statues in Upstate's Courtyard of the Founding Mothers, Drs. Elizabeth Blackwell and Sarah Loguen Fraser. Dr. Blackwell was the first woman to earn a medical degree in the United States, graduating in 1849 from Geneva College of Medicine, which today is Upstate Medical University. And Dr. Loguen Fraser, who graduated in 1876, was one of the nation's first female African-American physicians and the first female doctor in the Dominican Republic. I was reading about how you prepared yourself to make the statue of Lucille Ball, including watching I Love Lucy and reading about her. What did you do to prepare to work on Elizabeth Blackwell and Sarah Loguen Fraser?
Well, with Elizabeth Blackwell and Sarah Loguen Fraser, because they were not contemporaries today, I didn't have any videos, so I could only rely on photographs. And there were very few photographs. And a lot of the photographs were misrepresented. Some people thought that Elizabeth Blackwell was actually her sister Emily. So I see pictures online of Elizabeth Blackwell, and it's actually Emily. They even have Clara Barton, who was the founder of the Red Cross, as Elizabeth Blackwell. You can go and look on it online. So if you Google, I was very confused in the beginning, and it was very difficult for me to go to the university and to show them the actual photo that I believed was Elizabeth Blackwell. And so I did my sculpture based on that photograph of her.
How much time did you spend making the 2 statues?
That was about a year and a half. All sculptors ask for 1 year for one statue because you have to also consider being in queue at the foundries. Foundries are pretty tied up these days. There's not a ton of them going around. So you usually ask for 1 year for one, but I believe I finished both of mine in 2 years, and I worked both of them at the same time. I felt it was very necessary. I couldn't just do one. Originally, they were very curious about or interested in having Elizabeth Blackwell because it was coming up for her birthday, which is, by the way, February 3rd, National Women Physicians Day. So they were thinking first of having me do one. And I was like, no, I can't just do one and not have the other next to her because I wanted them to be in a relationship with each other. I just wanted to feel them both at the same time. And I found that necessary to do. So luckily, it turned out I did both of them at the same time.
You told reporters that one of the biggest challenges in your Lucy statue, and we should point out this is the current Lucy statue that replaced the previous one, was the polka dots on her dress. Did you have unique challenges with Blackwell and Loguen Fraser?
Unique challenges in the sense that maybe with the monaural stethoscope in her pocket at first, I wasn't sure because in 1849 she graduated, and I believe it was 1851 that the binaural was invented. So I was thinking that she was also an obstetrician, like she would bring a stethoscope to mothers' bellies to feel the heartbeat inside. And I guess they call that a fetoscope. So I just combined the two and I went ahead and made a monaural, a stethoscope, fetoscope in her pocket.
Are these life size or larger than life?
Oh, much larger than life. Yes, they're a quarter of a size larger than they would be. And I believe they were little women. They weren't large women. So if you stand next to them, you'll see, because they're about 6 foot, I think they're each around 6'2", and they stand on a little platform I made with them that's about 3 inches. And originally we thought they were going to go on higher pedestals. So for me as an artist, I'm happy to see that they're okay where they are, because I made them as though they would be up higher. And I have Sarah with her head tilted sideways looking towards the people, but she's just fine where she is. So even though they decided not to put them on pedestals, they're just fine where they are.
I'm wondering, because they all are so tall, if you're working on their heads, are they laid down for that or do you have to climb up?
No, everyone always wonders, like, I'm not a very tall woman. And I always say, because people say, you little thing, do all these big pieces. Well, one little rung on a ladder is 8 or 9 inches. And I have so many ladders in my room. And I do also at times when I'm working on the clay, I make sure that I have the heads as almost like a lollipop. I don't know if other sculptors do this, but I have a metal cord inside that holds the head so that I can pop it out and work on it in different areas. So, yeah.
Now, how do you get the statues from your studio to the foundry? Because that's a distance to go.
Oh, it is. It is. I have a lot of experience with this. So the foundry that I use has a spectacular team, and they bring in a flat truck and they have the big arm that lifts it up, and it's a whole amazing ordeal. They wrap them in a very, very safe manner. And I have tons of footage on that because it's a really cool day when they're all ready to go. Sad day too, because I have empty nest syndrome when they leave.
Does the foundry deliver them to Syracuse? Is that how they got to Upstate?
Yes, yes, yes. One of the top teams. Yeah, the fellow who had all those pieces in Times Square. I don't know if you saw she was like a 20-foot tall Black woman, or maybe she was like 15, but it was in the middle of Times Square. The same company delivered those statues to Syracuse.
What are the models made of before they get cast?
They're clay. I use a French clay, La Beau Touche, my favorite. It's a very nice, soft clay that when I heat it up, it's very malleable. And actually, I have two different temperatures that I use. Like in the winter, I use a lower melt, and in the summer, a high melt. But that's what I use. And then I do the molds right here in my studio. And then once the molds are done, I bring the molds to the foundry. I used to do the waxes right here, but a wax is a wax, and UAP is excellent at making the waxes. I do the lost wax process. I'm sorry. I don't want to lose the listeners to what goes on in a 6,000-year-old process, the bronze making. It's a very detailed process, and I give lectures on it, PowerPoint presentations with about 80 slides. It's quite fascinating. People don't know when you see those statues sitting there, what it took to get them to that point.
It's fascinating. Once they're done, how long do bronze statues last? Are they forever?
Oh, inside almost indefinitely, but the outside elements will eventually, thousands of years though. I mean, in China, look at the pieces that are still existing. Bronze is very, very strong material. It doesn't rust because they don't have iron in it. So it lends itself to lasting quite long, unless it's like in the ocean, the salt. But I use a spray, a special coating to put on mine to make them even last longer. But they'll be fine right up there at the university.
That's good to know. And I
Yeah.
appreciate you making time to tell us about this. Thank you so much, Ms. Palmer.
Oh, thank you. It's been an honor to speak with you.
My guest has been sculptor Carolyn Palmer. The Informed Patient is a podcast covering health, science, and medicine, brought to you by Upstate Medical University in Syracuse, New York, and produced by Jim Howe, with sound engineering by Bill Brokel and graphic design by Dan Cameron. Find our archive of previous episodes at upstate.edu/informed. If you enjoyed this episode, please invite a friend to listen. You can also rate and review the Informed Patient podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you tune in. This is your host, Amber Smith, thanking you for listening.